The land of Israel is a magical place where Jesus Christ lived and walked. This is the land where we can see the Bible alive and burning within you. This is also the land of the future because there are many prophecies in the Bible for this land that have not yet been fulfilled. Keep your eyes on Zion, God's holy land. The Jews are God's measure, God's outline, God's blueprint for what He is doing in the rest of the world. Your servants love the rock of Zion and have compassion on her dust. Then all nations will fear the name of the Lord, and all the kings of the earth will fear His glory. When the Lord restores Zion, He will appear in His glory. Psalm 102-1316. Some Protestants believe that today's state of Israel fulfills a prophecy in the Bible. For example, in the book Jerusalem Countdown, Pastor John Hagee wrote, "This great event was recorded by the prophet Isaiah. A nation will be born in one day. It was the most important moment in the prophetic history of the 20th century. It was living proof to everyone that the God of Israel is alive and well." Today the world is scared about the situation in the Middle East. Missile attacks, conflicts between armed militias, and terrorist bombings occur regularly. In addition, there is the possibility of nuclear weapons being used. It's no surprise that people everywhere are worried. Just as predicted, there's an ongoing gruesome war between Israel and Hamas, which has caused many to wonder if the return of the Messiah has come. Is the moment finally upon us? Will the prophecies come to pass, or will unexpected peace prevail? For significant prophetic passages are being fulfilled in Israel before our very eyes. There are Ezekiel 36-24-28, Jeremiah 16:15-16, Zechariah 12:3-4, and Jeremiah 49-34-39. These passages give us a glimpse into God's divine plan with Israel and provide a unique perspective for His chosen people, the Jews. Over 2,800 years ago, the prophet Ezekiel prophesied these words about Israel. "I will take you from the nations and gather you from all the countries and bring you into your own land. I will sprinkle clean water on you, and you shall be clean from all your uncleannesses, and from all your idols I will cleanse you. And I will give you a new heart, and a new spirit I will put within you, and I will remove the heart of stone from your flesh and give you a heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit within you, and cause you to walk in my statutes, and be careful to obey my rules. You shall dwell in the land that I gave to your fathers, and you shall be my people, and I will be your God." Upon examining Ezekiel's historical and contextual background, it is evident that the prophet was not discussing the Israelites' return to Canaan under Zerubbabel, Ezra, and Nehemiah. However, in an incredibly historic and prophetic event, Israel regained its sovereignty on May 14, 1948, which was previously unforeseen. This event fulfilled Ezekiel's prophecy, but only halfway. Ezekiel's prophecy also alludes to a final and complete restoration under the Messiah in the end times. During this time, Jesus will establish His kingdom in the Holy Land and reign supreme. From Ezekiel's words that God will take Israel from the nations and bring her into her own land, Jeremiah adds more detail on how God will do just that. Jeremiah 16:15-16 reads, "As the Lord lives who brought up the people of Israel out of the north country and out of all the countries where He had driven them, for I will bring them back to their own land that I gave to their fathers. Behold, I am sending for many fishers, declares the Lord, and they shall catch them. And afterward I will send for many hunters, and they shall hunt them from every mountain and every hill, and out of the clefts of the rocks." The word diaspora was coined to describe the migration of the Jews coming out of the Babylonian captivity. Since that initial dispersion, the Jewish people have faced many more upheavals and resettlements from the times of the Persians, the Greeks, the Romans, and during World War II at the hands of Hitler. So, how did God bring back His people? According to Jeremiah, God used Israel's enemies to drive His people back to the Holy Land. Although there are an estimated 7 million Jews who have returned to Israel, they, however, do not possess the entirety of the land promised to Abraham in Genesis 12:1-3, 7. 15:18 21. 17 to 7 to 8. That day, many prophets tell us, will come soon. In Zechariah 12 to 3 to 4, God declares, I will make Jerusalem like an intoxicating drink that makes the nearby nations stagger when they send their armies to besiege Jerusalem and Judah. On that day I will make Jerusalem an immovable rock. All the nations will gather against it to try to move it, but they will only hurt themselves. If you notice, many larger nations seem to be intentionally stirring up conflict with Israel. But why? According to Zechariah's prophecy, Jerusalem would become a cup of trembling for the surrounding nations, leading to the Battle of Armageddon. Yet, despite the ongoing conflict, God will protect Israel from defeat at the hands of her enemies. Deep in the pages of Jeremiah, we find this insulated passage. The word of the Lord that came to Jeremiah the prophet concerning Elam, in the beginning of the reign of Zedekiah king of Judah. Thus says the Lord of hosts, Behold, I will break the bow of Elam, the mainstay of their might. And I will bring upon Elam the four winds from the four quarters of heaven. And I will scatter them to all those winds, and there shall be no nation to which those driven out of Elam shall not come. I will terrify Elam before their enemies and before those who seek their life. I will bring disaster upon them, my fierce anger, declares the Lord. I will send the sword after them, until I have consumed them, and I will set my throne in Elam, and destroy their king and officials, declares the Lord. But in the latter days I will restore the fortunes of Elam, declares the Lord. Currently, Iran is the largest sponsor of state terrorism. The same place where the Iranian Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, said the mission of the Islamic Republic of Iran is to erase Israel from the map of the region. According to Jeremiah's prophecy, Elam, or modern-day Iran, will have nuclear power. Still, God will cause supernatural chaos and destruction to the Iranians, preventing them from destroying Israel and the world. Is the existence of the modern state of Israel a further validation of Scripture's reliability along the same lines as that of the Jewish people's continuing presence in the world? A national spiritual regeneration by turning to Jesus is not a biblical prerequisite for a major movement of Jewish people returning to and possessing the land of Israel. In fact, the prophet Zechariah indicated the Jewish people would turn to God through the Messiah only after returning to Israel. Zech 12:10, 13-1. Likewise, the prophet Ezekiel stated God's promise, For I will take you from the nations, gather you from all the lands, and bring you into your own land. Ezek 36-24. The passage continues, Then I will sprinkle clean water on you, and you will be clean. Moreover, I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit within you. And I will remove the heart of stone from your flesh and give you a heart of flesh. Ezek 36-25-26. Note that the spiritual regeneration of Israel follows the restoration of the Jewish people to the land. Thus regathered, Israel will, as a nation, turn in faith toward the promised Messiah. The Bible predicts Israel would return to the land in stages. Ezekiel 37 contains the stark and unforgettable vision of a valley of dry bones. The bones come to life in stages, first sinews on the bones, then flesh, then skin, and finally, the breath of life. Israel today is a democracy that does not officially declare its trust in the God of the Bible. The state of Israel today grants citizenship to anyone of Jewish descent or Jewish conversion, while membership in the Israel of God is granted only to those who submit to Jesus Christ and share in the sprinkling of his blood. The rebuilding of the Jewish temple is very closely linked both to the restoration of Israel and the Messianic era. The rebuilding of the temple is important because it is the place from which the Messiah Jesus will rule the earth as the seat of his kingdom. The rebuilding of the temple also signifies that the enemies of Israel have been conquered and their presence removed from the land. The possible rebuilding of the Jewish third temple is hotly debated. In Ezekiel's prophecy, the temple of God is measured and defined so minutely suggests a physical structure, not merely a spiritual or allegorical one. Despite the Bible prophesying that when the temple is rebuilt, the Antichrist will also appear, at which point the world economy will be very bad. The construction of the third temple was part of the Israeli plan. In a 2010 poll, nearly half of Israelis wanted to rebuild the temple. They also established the Temple Institute and began preliminary works such as preparing funds, architectural design, and construction of equipment and utensils in accordance with the instructions in the Bible. National hatred and inherent religious hatred stemming from the sovereignty dispute over the land that both Israel and Palestine consider sacred and left by their ancestors is the root cause leading to the conflicts. Bloody conflict. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is considered the most complex and difficult to resolve conflict in the world, followed by at least 6 Middle East wars, to Palestinian Intifada protest movements, and countless other incidents. The clash is similar to the recent series of violent attacks between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. Going back in history books record that about 5,000 years ago, Jewish and Arab ancestors both settled in the Middle East. Through many battles for land in the BC period, there were times when the Jews won and built a prosperous Jewish kingdom, but many times they lost their land, were chased away, and had to go into exile. Dead everywhere. However, centuries later, in many ways, especially by buying back land from local people, the Jews always sought to return to the land where the Jewish kingdom had previously existed. Where in 168 BC the original land was renamed Palestine by the Roman Empire after occupying the Jewish kingdom, and the Arabs living here were called Palestinians. Through many changes in history, especially through the massacres under the Nazis, the Jews became even more determined to carry out the resurrection plan, establishing a Jewish state in the Middle East. The latest ceasefire agreement between Israel and the Islamist movement Hamas returns fragile peace in the Gaza Strip, but the consequences are unpredictable for regional and world security, and those who suffer the biggest and worst consequences are none other than the Palestinian people and the Israeli people. Let calm before the storm. Bible prophecy shows Jerusalem to be the focal point of important events before the return of Christ to inaugurate his rule over the earth. Notice what Jesus revealed. Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, whoever reads, let him understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Jesus was referring to a prophecy in Daniel 9, a detailed prediction of the coming of the Messiah. Daniel described one who makes desolate, Daniel 9:27. Here God reveals a conflict that will involve a sacrifice and a covenant treaty or other legal agreement. Apparently, Jerusalem will see a respite from conflict when outside powers become involved and lead or force the combatants into a brief peace. But such a peace will only be the calm before the final storm.